Benvenuti.
Welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Someone asked me this morning whether this title is out of time. Archaeology, a project for peace, Syria. Someone told me, isn't it absurd? Can we talk about a peace project for Syria today? Because we're not in Geneva, we are not at the UN, we're not able to negotiate any agreement. Neither can we provide guarantees to those in fight. But we have a certainty, which is the result of so many years in history at the meeting. Peace is a pathway of education, knowledge and encounter. It's a path which can be long but also short. It's not time that matters. It's where it begins from, and the path of peace starts from an event. That is the discovery that the other is an asset to me. You are an asset to me. If something happens now, in this very moment, I can say that you are an asset for me. Peace becomes possible. Otherwise, we will only be slaves to a wrong battle between injustice which is made to us and made to others. I want something to happen between me and you. I wish to meet you, share things with you and discover what we have in common. I want to let myself go into this desire. Isn't this more human and more true than fighting against each other? Archaeology is said to be a treasure. It's part of cultural heritage, but we have to bring this expression closer to us because it seems that it's just about objects to be kept in a showcase. But man has a desire and need to search for things all the time. Archaeology, rather than being a cultural heritage, is a human heritage. It's an asset, a resource that we still have today. It livens up the desire to meet the other of the past and of today, everything which is behind us and within ourselves, where we come from and what we have in common. This is why we can afford this title, which is apparently out of time. We will be hearing the reasons, about the reasons for all this from two distinguished scholars. I'd like to introduce them and thank them very much. Professor Paolo Matthiae, who is sitting to my right. I was saying to him before that when I was young, I used to read stories, marvelous stories relating to Ebla and all the discoveries that changed very much of our perception of the world in contemporary times, changing the perception of history. And I was telling him that reading this was very interesting for me. It's a bit more difficult today to read about this, but we have him with us. Thank you very much for coming and reading this. I've always dreamt of meeting him in person, and here he is. Thank you very much on behalf of us all. Giorgio Buccellati is an habitué of the meeting in Rimini. He's come here several times. Like Professor Matthiae, also Professor Buccellati has spent years and his whole life working at the city of Urkesh and many other projects. We'll talk about this more in detail. It was just to introduce some of the speakers. And then again, here with me, we have a representative from Syria, Homs, as we hear from other Syrian friends who are here today with us, wanting to come here from Syria means really desiring to be here. It's a question of overcoming not just geographical borders, but borders between life and death. And we have Father Ziad Hilal here, who lives in Homs. He's the director of the Jesuit Refugee Service. You probably remember that Father Nauras was here last year from the Jesuit Refugee Service. He will tell us about this because, his work somehow speaks for the title of the meeting, Destiny has not left man alone. You can always rely on a light shining in darkness. We have different languages today, Arabic, French, Italian. We've got a video. It's more complex than the other panel discussions that we've had. It gives you the sense of a kaleidoscope of countries and languages and people. To start with, let me give the floor to the first speaker. But before doing this, I'd like to tell you that in the first row we have friends from Syria, all scholars. They are responsible for the Antiquities of Syria. Then we'll hear Mr. Alolo speak on behalf of this group of scholars who have gone through a difficult journey to come here. We will introduce them soon. As I told you, it's going to be a complex meeting because of different languages, etc. But the first speaker is Msgr Zenari, who cannot be here with us. So with a short video, he will sort of give us the sense of this meeting and an introduction to it. So please show the video.
Eccellenza, lei...
Your Excellency, you have been Nuncius in Damascus since 2009, 2 years before the rebellion against President Assad broke out. What happened? What was your role before the war and now? Do you think there is still a possibility for Christians to be present and give witness? Well, Syria is a mosaic of ethnic religious groups. A mosaic which has been united pretty well for many years and is still united in a way. I would advocate that it remains united. Every group had their own role, and this is particularly so for the Christian community, which was and still is very much esteemed and appreciated. If you know history, well, Syrians know that Christians have been there for 2,000 years, 6 centuries before Islam. They gave a great contribution to the Renaissance in the Arab world in the field of literature, arts, and till a few decades ago, at the time of freedom, when they had more political space. Indeed, after the conflict, things have changed very much for all these ethnic and religious groups. The presence of Christians is still very much appreciated. And many times I met Muslim leaders of the tribes who came and visited me here, and they really offered their support and sorrow for the degeneration of ultra-radical Muslims. They confirm that this is not Islam, and they are very sorry that many of our Christian friends are forced to flee from Syria. I think that we should help Christians to remain in the country because they contribute to the enrichment of the society, as stated many times by President Assad and the King of Jordan. Without the presence of Christians, our societies would risk to be impoverished culturally and socially speaking. I would say that the mission of Christians in this very moment in time, as it was in the past, is that of being a bridge in a time of crisis. The Christians, as I could see while visiting the different scattered communities, well, the mixed villages where there were Christians, Sunnis, Christians and Alawites, Christians and Druzians, were villages where life was in harmony. Muslims, Druzians and the others used to say that you can live in peace together with Christians. They are not fanatics, they are open and are tolerant. The whole arts and cultural heritage is at risk in Syria. The destruction of Malula is a terrible example of that. Many sites have been destroyed during the war. We know that if we destroy the memory of history, that is one of the worst and most intolerable crimes. How can we defend the cultural heritage, which is of extreme value in Syria? Well, you visited Malula together with other church authorities of the Catholic and Orthodox Church on Easter Day afternoon. That was a terrible wound to the heart. We used to think that Christian churches in the day of Easter, they are well decorated with flowers, and the bells are ringing. So the destruction of the conflicts with the destruction of very ancient monasteries such as Bacchus and Sergius and Thekla, well, that was really painful for our hearts. Many sites have been destroyed. In Aleppo, for example, and the mosques and so on. I think that it's high time and urgent to speak of that, because that is a further wound on Syria. Well, thank you very much, Monsignor Zenari, and we hope and wish to him, who represents the Universal Church in this shattered country, that they could, well, they indeed count on our support, vicinity and prayers. Now, the floor to explorers of the past is like making a journey in the deep heart of human beings. Professor Matthiae is a professor emeritus at the Sapienza University, a member of the Accademia dei Lincei. He conducted 47 excavation works in Ebla. He is the person who discovered Ebla. And from 1964 to 2010, He wrote many books, and he's a member of many European academies. You have the floor, Professor Matthiae, and please introduce us to the wonderful adventure within the deep heart of human being. How can we experience that at a time of great difficulties? And thank you very much for coming.
Una terra affascinante.
A fascinating piece of land between the sea and the desert, a millennium-long history of different civilizations, a cultural heritage of incomparable wealth at the center of a storm which seems to be unstoppable, where human tragedies seem to be endless. This is Syria today, which is struck by a conflict due to clashes that cannot be reconciled and have produced thousands of casualties and millions of refugees, broken lives, destroyed hopes, and destinies which have no hope. In this humanitarian tragedy, the priority is the attempt to relieve the suffering of millions of men and women, but only quick attention is paid to the damages and dangers to which the works of one of the richest cultural heritages in the world is exposed to. The medieval minaret of the Umayyad mosque in Aleppo was destroyed, and the medieval souk of Aleppo was put to fire. Then illegal looting has taken place in the frontier city, and also the Knight's Crag, the nicest fortress of the Mediterranean, was damaged. The devastation of the Ottoman souk of Homs, the damages to the Shazer Castle, the thefts in the Archaeological Museum of Arma, the illegal excavations on a large scale in Apamea and the Palmyra necropolis, the intentional destruction of Aslantash in Raqqa, and a royal statue in Syria, and the devastation of the Malula monasteries, and even Mari and Ebla are running huge risks. To be simple, there are three types of risks and damages which the Syrian cultural heritage is exposed to in an unexpected way. And these phenomena are really of a huge size. First of all, there is no adequate control over the territory by the police forces. In a not-too-distant past, this absence increased the number of illegal excavations on a small scale, but not dramatic. Today, instead, there are organized gangs, organized sometimes at international level, gangs of illegal excavators working on a large scale with highly destructive machinery, with armed protection, and also with sophisticated help of others for exporting illegally retrieved objects, which are exported outside the country and sent to the big international antiquities market. Secondly, the armed forces use historical sites as places for camps for the military staff and for the settlement of military command headquarters. This phenomenon is known to Europe from the Second World War. So these sites of great historical and artistic value are not only damaged because of improper use, but what happens is that these sites become the target of bombings and attacks with heavy weapons with devastating effects by other armed forces that are fighting. We all remember Monte Cassino, the Monte Cassino Abbey during the Second World War, the Knights crack in Syria, and the city of Aleppo have had damages, fortunately not too many, following this. The third phenomenon is the most serious one. It's due to the implacable and blind hatred of the other by fanatic fundamentalists with an extremist cultural identity which cannot be accepted. This phenomenon, supported by a complete ideological and religious intolerance, took place several times in history and was at the basis of tremendous losses of the cultural heritage, because such hatred aims at the complete destruction, intentional, not accidental destruction of the other's identity. It's devastating. It's a terrible phenomenon causing damages and losses to the cultural heritage. The officials of the Directorate General of Antiquities and Museums in Damascus try and heroically restrict damages, even risking their own lives, trying to defend the respect of monuments by all parties involved. Some major results were achieved with groups of people from the civil society. In the absence of institutional controls or police controls, they have created groups of volunteers that ensure that very important sites are watched. This happened in Palmyra and in the Marat Roman Museum, not very far from Ebla. UNESCO has had working sessions in Amman, Bahrain and Paris to stop antiquities trafficking from Syria. Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey and Iraq have adhered to this proposal with some blatant successes, like the restitution to Damascus of many works blocked by the frontier police in Lebanon and the sequestration or seizing of some minor objects at the borders of Turkey. However, the forgotten victim of this tragedy, which is the cultural heritage of Syria, which is on the verge of an abyss without any return, has to be the subject of systematic continuous attention. The campaign, which was launched in Rome on the initiative of Francesco Rutelli and myself, received support from many scholars throughout Europe. It aims at increasing awareness of the problem worldwide, stopping antiquities trafficking, supporting the people that are responsible for watching the sites, and also restoration work for the sites and objects that have been managed. The exhibition, which is titled Syria's Splendor and Drama in Palazzo Venezia in Rome, dramatically reflects the situation of cultural heritage in Syria and intends to draw the attention of the Italian and European audience as well as worldwide audience. Now let me conclude with this statement. How can the cultural and political world forget the Aleppo that was remembered by a great poet, Abwala al-Maharri, who maybe Dante got to know sometime towards the year 1000. His verses were, "A valley of Eden is Aleppo for those that reach it, but those that leave it, for those that leave it, it's a fire of hell. What is great is superb in it, while and it's so extraordinary that what is short becomes great." Same is true for the sea and the Kuwait River, which is a small river crossing Aleppo. It is like a sea because Aleppo is really extraordinary. Every single stone of Aleppo resembles the mount which is close to Mecca. How can modern mankind forget a city which was exalted in this way by a precursor of Dante?
Grazie professore anche per
Thank you very much, Professor Matthiae, for raising a very important point: hatred for the others, the desire to annihilate the others. It's an impulse which is stunning for us. Professor Giorgio Buccellati, a professor at the California University in Los Angeles. He is the director of many institutions, in particular for the International Institute for Mesopotamia and Upper Syria. He knows many different languages of the past and published a structural grammar of the Babylonese language. So he's the one who has the keys to our past. He helps us in understanding what our progenitors did. Like he and his wife Marilyn, seated here in the front row, are the curators of a very important exhibition here at the meeting. Now the floor to Professor Buccellati, who is the heart and soul of our meeting. So he and his wife had been working for 30 years in Syria, in particular in the side of Urkesh. And they published many books, and the publisher is Yakabok. Thank you very much, Roberto. Allow me to start from your final words. Archaeology can talk to our deepest hearts. And the archaeologist has to be the interface between the past and the future. In particular, in those times where the social texture where archaeology lives seems to be disintegrating. We therefore have a special responsibility, i.e. to go beyond things. There is a moral strength which was at the origin of the things we are excavating and which we want to experience again. This is the purpose of the exhibition. We are here today to talk about the key moment, the key issue. Is it worth being archaeologist at a tragic time in history? I'd like to try and answer by starting from two different viewpoints. The first concerns what the General Directorate of Antiquities and Museums did, which is like the Italian Superintendency. Paolo highlighted the different activities they carried out, and we'll hear of that from the Director General in video. Unfortunately, he cannot be present for the very same reasons that prevented Msgr Zenari from being here. What's important is the spirit of the Directorate for Antiquities. The approach they are implemented in order to maintain and promote the past. This is a tragic moment. However, it's really a glorious time for the Directorate. That might seem a paradox, but that is true. They have a long tradition. All archaeologists working in Syria like that very much. Bureaucracy always played second fiddle. The most important thing when visiting the headquarters of the Directorate was archaeology in itself. I mean, if you go there to ask for permits, you would have ended up in speaking shards. I mean, history. That was always the case in Syria, contrary to other institutions. So that was a glorious tradition, which they still support brilliantly. I say brilliant because the work is based on courage, and it needs courage to remain there after 4 years of bloodsheds. You should be brave in order to continue what is apparently a useless routine. On the contrary, it has a completely new meaning. I think that is a real model for the whole world. The Directorate for Antiquities is a model which teaches us a lot. Often so, people in the West have a sort of colonial attitude, as if they have to go there teaching these people how to protect the heritage, but they are doing their best in the measure of what is possible, of course. You might have heard Father Pizzaballa a few days ago. He said, I don't want to be good at all times, but at the same time, you should not ignore the good things which are happening and what these people are actually doing. This is what I mean when I say that that is a model for the whole world. I cannot go into details. It would take too much time. And also the Director General will speak of that in a few minutes. Allow me to stress this at a time when the Directorate General is isolated. They are alone. I say this to Paolo and the other colleagues. We should acknowledge that the Directorate is defending our sites. We are there to do our job as diggers, to excavate. We are not there to protect the sites. Those who protect the sites are the officials of the Directorate. They are not only officials, they are real colleagues who feel the moral obligation to defend the sites. And I'm sure the 3 colleagues that, who will take the floor in a minute are a wonderful example of that attitude. To conclude, something which might seem a tiny thing, but it concerns what we do. I say this to give you an idea of the importance of getting committed in small things and the impact that that might have on more important things. Msgr Zenari said that Syria is a mosaic of different identities. The mosaic is not only composed of all individual pieces, but it's the whole, it's the composition of the mosaic which is important, i.e. looking for a national identity which is not based on the individual tiles, identities, but I hope that something positive comes out from that. So can we screen the video, please? In our little world or site of Tel Muzan, which is the place where we are excavating now, we developed number of activities which had started before 2011 and the great battles. Some small activities which are still going on. This was filmed 2 weeks ago. We indeed talk to our assistants on a nearly daily basis. This is Ibrahim Fellow. He's showing us the great monumental stairs of the temple, and we taught them how to protect, and they are doing that. So they apparently feel no fatigue. After 4 years, Ibrahim is showing the little cracks between the stones or the present condition of the walls. Made of bricks that they continue to protect and moved. And this is indeed a source of great comfort, because all the structures are preserved from the bad weather, who could have really cancelled these structures, but they have been preserved. Note the simplicity there. One of our purposes was to offer the simplest system of protection, and that worked because they can continue to use it. Just look at the small patches he's showing. He's very proud. That is the poor part of preservation, but still it's very effective. Instead of spending money to buy new tints, please put patches, as there are no tourists, as you might well imagine. So please put the patches so that we can protect the ancient structures. I mean, there is no soundtrack, but still Ibrahim is really very proud in showing us all these things. This is a wall which was very damaged, which we repaired and covered. And last year we indeed replaced the clots which were being destroyed. This is a humble work and a very loyal work, and this is very important. Amin Manu, she's a woman from the village of Mozan. She has married a man from another village, and she's the one in charge of a group of 30 women, with the support of the officials of the Department on Antiquities. They developed some craft activities in a much more systematic way. We can't see their faces, but just look at their hands, which very well show that they are humble people who don't want to flatter. They like to produce little things of which they are very proud. And the woman says the material work is, and the material aid is important, but the moral aid you gave us is even better. Look, these are things which are very nice. They put these things in a black plastic bag, which is used to collect waste, and they put it on a bus which goes to Damascus. The same bag is put into another more conventional container, and that is then shipped to Italy. Note how creative they are in the crafts they make. Unfortunately, we can't hear the soundtrack, but it's in Arabic anyway. You perceive the emotion of their voices. That has become something to give continuity to their lives. they can really hand over an intangible heritage. They have many beautiful dolls. Some are exhibited in the exhibition. So the idea was to develop some economic activities in the villages, and the fact that these activities continue, that makes us very happy. A third very short segment, this is Hamadi. He used to be the assistant of Marilyn in the pottery lab, and he's very good in analyzing the shards. Marilyn and I went there for the last time in December 2011, and with the permit of the directorate, we brought many of the shards which we had excavated and not yet studied in the yard of his own home where he is studying them. So he's proud, humble, loyal, relentless, and that is really moving for me. He's saying that the little shards can be described from a technical viewpoint, and he's wonderful thanks to the teachings by Marilyn. He also says that everything is related with the other elements related to the place where the place was found and the different stratigraphic layers. So the analysis he made, written in those pieces of paper, are uploaded in the computer by the assistants, conveyed from Mosan to Kamishli, and then they are sent by the net. And we receive nearly weekly, monthly reports. He's smiling. That videotape was recorded 2 weeks ago, and it's just one of the many we received after 4 years. So that gesture was the one I wanted to show you to conclude. Thank you.
Grazie. Ora abbiamo...
Thank you very much. And now we will see the second part of this encounter with some people that joined us from Syria. The Director General of Antiquities and Museums, Mahmoud Abdulkarim, was not able to come, as Professor Buccellati said, and he sent us his video message, a short one, 4 minutes, that we're going to listen to now. And then immediately after, I will introduce our friends from Syria. So we can start the video.
باسم المديرية العامة للآثار والمتاحف في وزارة الثقافة في سوريا، يسعدني أن نشارك في هذه التظاهرة الثقافية الكبيرة ريميني ميتينج 2014، وأن نقدم لمحة عن واقع الآثار في سوريا خلال هذه الأزمة التي تمر فيها سوريا. نشكر كل قائمين على هذه التظاهرة الثقافية على دعوة المديرية العامة للآثار والمتاحف للمشاركة في هذه المظاهرة، وخاصة البروفيسور جورجيو بوتشيلاتي والبروفيسورة ماريلين بوتشيلاتي. تعد سوريا مركزا لبعض من أقدم الحضارات على وجه المعمورة، التي تركت على امتداد أرضها آثار قل نظيرها في العالم. تشهد سوريا منذ 3 أعوام أحداث مؤلمة أرخت ظلالا قاتمة على جميع تفاصيل حياة السوريين، وانعكست سلبا على كل قطاعات بما فيها قطاع الآثار. ومع تطور الأحداث المؤلمة في البلاد وغياب المؤسسات الحكومية المعنية والسلطات الأثرية عن بعض المناطق، تصاعد حجم الأخطار التي تهدد المواقع الأثرية، وتشهد بعضها حاليا أعنف وأخطر هجمة بسبب تزايد أعمال التنقيب غير المشروع الممنهجة التي تقوم بها عصابات آثار مسلحة بمشاركة مئات الأشخاص المأجورين من داخل سوريا ومن الدول المجاورة، يهددون الأهالي بقوة السلاح لمنعهم من التدخل. كما تحولت بعض المواقع الأثرية إلى ساحات معارك بسبب الاشتباكات العنيفة التي تدور رحاها في المناطق التي تتواجد فيها، مما أضر بمبان تاريخية وقلاع أثرية، إضافة إلى استهداف التماثيل الأثرية لأسباب إيديولوجية. كما سكن بعض الأهالي الذين نزحوا من مساكنهم في المواقع الأثرية، بالتالي وبسبب الأحداث السابق ذكرها وضعت مواقع التراث العالمي الستة على لائحة اليونسكو للمواقع المعرضة للخطر، وحتى الآن لم نتمكن من حصر هذه الأضرار بشكل كامل ودقيق بسبب صعوبة الوصول إلى بعض المواقع الأثرية التي تقع في المناطق الساخنة. وقد شهدت المتاحف السورية بعض السرقات كما في متحفي رقة ودير عطية، كما سرق اللصوص بعض القطع من متحف معرة النعمان وقطعتان من متحف حماة وبعض القطع التراثية من متحف التقاليد الشعبية في حلب، بالإضافة إلى قطعة رخامية من متحف أفامية. أما القطع الأثرية الأخرى في بقية المتاحف فبقيت سليمة وتم نقلها إلى أماكن آمنة قبل الأحداث. رؤية المديرين العام للآثار والمتاحف خلال هذه الأزمة: استندت رؤيتنا خلال هذه الأزمة ل5 عوامل رئيسية. 1. التوعية. تركزت رؤية المديرين العام للآثار والمتاحف في وزارة الثقافة منذ بدء الأحداث المؤلمة بالعمل على إشراك جميع السوريين في الدفاع عن التراث الأثري الذي يجسد تاريخهم وذاكرتهم المشتركة وكل ما جمعهم على مر الزمن ضد أعمال السرقة والنهب والتخريب. ثانيا، تماسك الموظفين على جميع المستويات. بفضل هذه الرؤية كان أداء الموظفين في المديرية العامة للآثار والمتاحف مهنيا وعلميا وفعالا، وظلت الكوادر متحدة في جميع المحافظات، وقد أسفرت جهودهم بالنجاح في كثير من المناطق والحالات، حيث تمت حماية المقتنيات من جميع المتاحف في سوريا ونقلها إلى أماكن آمنة. وكان من أهم أولوياتنا النتائج الإيجابية التي تحققت من خلال التعاون مع أعضاء المجتمعات المحلية في الحماية والحفاظ على المواقع الأثرية. ثالثا، المهنية، حيث ناشدت المديرية العامة للآثار والمتاحف منذ بدء الأحداث المؤلمة الجميع بالابتعاد عن المواقع الأثرية واحترام حرمتها، واتفاقا مع التزامات سوريا الدولية التي تنص على حماية الممتلكات الثقافية أثناء النزاعات. رابعا، الحد والتحكم بالأضرار، فمنذ بداية الأزمة استجبنا على الفور مع أول إشارات الخطر وقمنا بإطلاق حملة وطنية لتوعية الناس وحماية المتاحف والمواقع الأثرية، ووضعت الأمور في نصابها منذ البداية، وظهر ذلك من خلال الحفاظ على سوية كاملة للكادر من الموظفين والحراس الذين تقاضوا رواتبهم دون انقطاع، وتم إخلاء المتاحف وتخزين المجموعات المتحفية في أماكن آمنة، مما يعني أننا لم نفقد أي من هذه المقتنيات الثمينة، على خلاف ما حدث في حالات أخرى لم نكن قادرين على منع أعمال النهب التي طالت المواقع الأثرية في المواقع البعيدة بسبب عنف الأحداث في بعض هذه المناطق. خامسا، التعاون الخارجي مع جميع الجهات الدولية المعنية بالتراث الثقافي لجهة تبادل المعلومات فيما يخص حصر الأضرار والتعاون مع المنظمات لوقف الاتجار غير المشروع بالآثار. ومن جانب آخر وهام أيضا وهو التزامنا بالتعاون الدولي مع بعثات تنقيب خارجية، فسوريا لديها تعاون طويل الأمد مع عدد كبير من هذه البعثات. اسمحوا لي أن أقدم لكم الآن بعض التفاصيل عن هذه النقاط الخمس التي ذكرتها. التوعية، فقد حاولنا إشراك جميع السوريين في حماية تراثهم الثقافي الذي جمعهم عبر التاريخ. بذل موظفو وكوادر المديرين العام للآثار والمتاحف في وزارة الثقافة في جميع المحافظات جهودا جبارة.
Abbiamo avuto anche questa voce.
So we heard the voice from Damascus. Now I'd like to introduce the three directors of the Antiquities, the three people mentioned by Professor Buccellati, the people who are directly engaged day and night, who nourish hopes against any hopes to safeguard this heritage of mankind and of human beings. Dr. Ghazi Alolo, Director of Antiquities in the region of Idlib in Syria, and Urkesh, the site of Ebla, is that a part of the region of Idlib. And then Dr. Alolo will address us with the short speech. Then Dr. Khalid Masri, Director of Antiquities in the city of Aleppo, which was mentioned a few minutes ago, and which is experiencing this terrible tragedy. And Dr. Suleiman, Director of Antiquities of the region of Kamishli in Syria, where the site of Urkesh is located, where Giorgio and Marilyn Buccellati worked for a long time. Dr. Alolo, he will speak Arabic, but will have the oversound translation by our Syrian friend, who is the main assistant of Jami Kalissin. Anytime he goes to Syria, he works with Saman Daoud, whom I thank for his work. After a time of tranquility and well-being in Syria, which lasted a few decades, I would like to thank Professor Buccellati and his wife. Again, after a time of tranquility and well-being in Syria, which lasted a few decades, we were confronted with a terrible crisis which dominated a large part of Syria, and that was a terrible shock which had an impact on the Syrian cultural heritage. Many of our sites, which are located in the war areas, were damaged, looted, and we started seeing bands of people who were sacking and looting the archaeological sites. That was also accompanied and followed by activities to forge some of the archaeological remains. At present, the new Directorate for the Cultural Heritage in Syria tried to limit the side effects of such an activity. Very important decisions were made. We were able to remain strong and united. We worked with all members of staff of the Directorate throughout Syria in a team effort. Because right from the outcome, our idea was that of offering a united Syrian position or stance on our cultural heritage to the different ethnic groups, denominations, and belongings. In order to spare these remains the bad impact of ideological and political discussions. We worked with the spirit of a united team for we were well aware that attacking our cultural heritage means attacking our national identity. This is the reason why we have defended this idea with great passion and relentless work. The General Directorate for Cultural Heritage and Museums did a major effort to preserve the culture that we have inherited. Ladies and gentlemen, we are working in an emergency. There is no security in our country. The archaeological team finds it difficult to reach the place of work. And we have to tackle many problems and obstacles. The life of our members is always at risk. Many of our members and employees have died for a noble aim. That is, preserve our heritage and minimize damages. We live daily in suffering, and we are under enormous pressures. Allow me to quote some examples. One of the custodians of the cultural heritage working in the west periphery of Aleppo, which is about 20 kilometers from the center of the city, well, it takes him 11 hours to reach the workplace because he has to go through only safe roads. This means that he spends as much as half of his wage to pay for the public transport tickets. Before the crisis, it took him only 20 minutes to go to his office. Often so, our guardians walk for hours because there are no transport means. or simply because the cost of fuel is extremely high. Sometimes they wait in front of an ATM for hours because there is no electricity. They cannot use the cars of the directorate because they have to hide and conceal their identity. Otherwise, they would risk to be killed or kidnapped, because for the rest of the population, they represent the government of Syria. Our employees work in a real predicament. They cannot communicate. There is no electricity. And the economic situation is difficult because all commodities have extremely high prices. Our employees prepare reports of what is going on, and they send their reports to the directorate. Ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues and I have come here after a hard journey and a lot of suffering to tell you, loyally and sincerely, what's going on in our country. Coming here has been a great risk for us. It took us a lot of time and a hard journey. We had to travel for hours along secondary roads, which are not very safe, to reach Damascus and then Beirut. The priorities of the General Directorate are to protect museums and what they contain, because they are the target for many bands of criminals or extremists which call us the defenders and sanctifiers of statutes. We devoted a lot of effort to transport many of the archaeological remains in safe areas, and we transported the remains of Homs and Deir Azor museums as our last effort. That means more than 10,000 items. We were able to involve the local communities in the war areas, which are not controlled by the government, to block those who try to attack and loot our museums, such as, for example, the Museum of Ma'aret al-Numan, which preserves a rare collection of mosaics. The local population succeeded in blocking these bands of criminals and preserve all the remains. The same thing happened the museums of Hama and Idlib, which contain the treasures of Ebla. To conclude, from here, I'd like to launch an appeal. I'd like to ask the international community and all its institutions to help us in our venture. We are working hard to protect our cultural heritage, which indeed is part of the treasures of humanity. Thank you very much.
Grazie. Grazie, dottor Alolo. Grazie. Ringrazio con lui di nuovo i nostri amici.
Thank you. Thank you, Khalid Masri and Elias Suleiman as well. The city of Homs was mentioned by Mr. Alolo. It's from this city that Father Ziad Hilal comes from. He's the director of the Middle East North Africa project of the Jesuit Refugee Service in Homs, Syria. He studied many years in France. He got a master's degree in theology and one in education. Education is his vocation. He went back to Syria for training and education. So he has a vocation for this, and immediately after, war broke out and his life changed. Thank you very much for coming again, and let's listen to him. It's an exceptional, at the same time, dramatic experience. Father Hilal will also use a videotape and pictures to help us share the experience that he's going through. I'm very pleased to be here with you today. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee of this Rimini meeting for inviting me here. I would like to thank the Papal Nuncio, Msgr Zenari from Syria, who asked me to be here. I have discovered that a Syrian bishop is present among us. Giorgio is present here. Let me take this opportunity to say hello to him. Starting from your theme, Destiny Has Not Left Man Alone, I would like to share our experience in Syria with you, especially in the city of Homs. On the one hand, this shows the end of life, the end of the world, the end of existence because of hatred, because of violence, and massive destruction of a country, which is well known and famous because of its cultural heritage, its remains, its civilization, which is known worldwide, as we just heard from the two professors. Unfortunately, today the media show only the first part of this theme, the end of the world. The media intend to convey a dark image to the rest of the world without showing the nice image of a country which is well known for all its museum richness and cultural heritage. The cultural wealth of our country shows that destiny does not leave man alone. We will now see a video which is about what we do within JRS in Homs. This videotape shows you how important the civil society is in a moment of conflict. I'm asking the technical team to show this video.
Le commencement était...
It all began in April 2012 when most of the inhabitants of Homs left the city. The idea was to start a project to safeguard children, reunite families, and start peace and reconciliation in this area, in this region. We started in the neighborhoods of Homs with some children. Now we have 11 educational centers and psychological support centers based on reconciliation and peace. We've got many volunteers and also other centers. For example, the Humanitarian Support Center, we started out with 50 families. We have got 6,000 of them, 3,000 in Homs and 3,000 in the whole region. We have a third center, which is the center for the mentally disabled people. We started with some individuals. We've got 3 centers now and 65 people involved with all these problems. We have grown thanks to humanitarian aid, thanks to the help of associations helping us all the time. Let me take this opportunity to thank JRS and similar associations for their continuous help and support in time. The educational Center and Psychological and Social Support Center was founded in 2012, precisely when the crisis struck. The center started out with 100 children of any religion and faith without making any difference. Our goal is to provide our children with a space of peace, hope, reconciliation, and cohabitation for them to be more positive. We started with 3 kids. We've got more than 60 today in 3 centers, Al-Muhallis and Al-Daribia. Our priority right from the beginning was to provide individual or to accompany these persons individually to understand their needs. We follow a pedagogical program which meets the needs of each child. We want to help them for the future so that they can be empowered and be active individuals within the community. The center has a positive role, not just for the smaller children, but also for their families. It's a sign of peace and reconciliation to build a new world. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. What we do in JRS is for all human beings in Syria. Let me now stress how the concept of security is in our country. It's very important to feel secure, to protect and safeguard the city's life. It's the role of each government, of each authority, of the police forces. But then the war comes, and who is it that can protect the life of the citizens? All this was made weaker following violence. And we've just heard about the dangers of the archaeological sites. So we have to go towards civil society. It's the only one that could help us, could help everybody. We can thus understand how relevant civil actions are. They're supposed to replace everything which is lacking from the security point of view. And the purpose of all this is to have respect for each individual citizen. So the idea is to save cultural and religious freedom and the right of everybody so that one can express his or her own belief, culture and way of living, as well as right to think and respect any religious culture. The saint, religious sites and archaeological sites, not to mention then the importance of tolerance. This role should be played by cultural personalities, intellectuals, thinkers, religious people, and also teachers and educators. This is at the basis of everything. And this is what can really help maintain security and help us live in peace setting aside the spirit of war and violence. This is to avoid that this beautiful mosaic, which is Syria, becomes split and divided. Any confessional division, social division, ethnic division should be avoided. Our role today is that of understanding. It's important to respect each other. It's important to feel embedded in this country, both Christians and Muslims, without losing religious identity. The various groups have to find an agreement so that they can live in peace and save the civil society. I represent all citizens of Syria, not just the Christians, but as a priest, I'd like to tell you what our role is as Christians in Syria. I do agree with what Msgr Zenari said in his talk. The message of the Christians is that of the Bible: do not be afraid. This is essential for our life. It's the word of the Lord made flesh, who lived amongst us. In the Gospel, the Master says, I am at work and my Father is also at work. And we must also be at work for peace and reconciliation. Think of the presence of man. It's important to read the past of mankind. We just heard Professor Buccellati speak and Professor Matthiae. They have both highlighted the importance of civil society in Syria. Saving Syria means saving man and mankind. And if the world and the international community have a tendency to forget the Syrian world, they should not forget the treasures of the Syrian civilization. This is a message I'm sending out to save this beautiful country, which is called Syria. Our role today as Jesuits is not only that of working through words and actions, but it also means giving life back to our Syrian people. The example of Father Franz van der Loop, a Jesuit who was killed on April the 7th, 2014, in a residence in Homs, bears witness to this reality, a reality of violence and hatred, which cannot force man's destiny and cannot force man to live his homeland, his country and cradle. I'd like to welcome Father Franz van der Loop and all Syrians who decided to stay in their country precisely to save civilization, the civilization of our world, because we are aware that our treasures are still there, safeguarded in Syria. Thank you, everybody.
Veramente questo.
Well, your recollection of Father Franz, as you said, he was slaughtered last April, was really moving. And it's this recollection of a person who has given his life for that people wanting to remain there. I think this is the best way to conclude this meeting. This is a light in the darkness. The journey that we have made between the end of the world and the birth of the world, from the hatred against the other and the courage to challenge this hatred as Professor Buccellati said. So thank you very much and enjoy the meeting. Thank you very much for coming, and thanks to our friends from Syria.